I just wanted to see what would happen. See if it would pick back up. Because, it's crazy how they've just shut this down. And it would be one thing if I was the guy that was talking about Israel and talking about the Jays and all this other shit. And the China situation was the biggest, trending genocidal situation in the world. Or if literally anywhere else, anything else was happening, then it would make sense because people would go, dude, you were wasting your time talking about this, and it's clearly this. It's clearly the Swiss. It's clearly the Vatican. It's clearly whatever. And yet at the same time, all of the people that have ever, you shouldn't say that, or, whatever. How are they still that way? I mean, you would think it would be more obvious to people, but it's just not. My wife is talking about these books that she there's 2 books. This is Entering Hekate's Garden.
Hold on a second.
Magic Medicine.
Hekate's Garden.
Hekate's Garden. The Magic Medicine and Mystery of Plant Spirit Witchcraft.
These 2 were the 2 apothecary books were the ones that I showed you.
Okay. And so what ends up happening with me and those kinds of things is I have to ask, just like I would ask in any other situation, who published it? Who published the book? Who wrote the book? Who came up with the book? How did they come up with the book? Where did they get the information from?
That we used to use before pharmaceuticals.
And believe me, I'm all for the natural way to do it, because clearly the synthetic shit is crazy dangerous.
Yeah, that's what this is.
But my wife and I, she is you would think we'd be on the same page with this, and we're not. She
Zone. Yeah.
I mean, she's on the same page reluctantly when it comes to the Jays.
Yep.
But doesn't do it to the things that she likes yet.
Yeah.
That's the real test.
Oh, which one?
Is when you can
Oh yeah, the one that had MS.
You can do the thing where you the same critical, intelligent, skeptical person that you are when it comes to religion or politics or whatever. That you can have that same attitude when it's your thing. And you'll see that a lot with these truthers who are still Christians.
Yeah, you love these.
It's like, why don't you, how are you still a Christian?
Mm-hmm.
And I see it all the time, man. I see this all the time. How are you a Christian and a truther?
Yep.
Same narrative as how you believe in Trump. Okay, 5-year-old, you can stop.
What?
I said, okay, 5-year-old, you can stop.
These 2 were very economical. So you can look through them.
I mean, it's just.
What you like, or if you like both, whatever. But
this is a really hard position to be in, because everybody always says, well, you have to believe in something. You saying you don't believe in anything? My wife will say shit like, well, it's pretty fucking arrogant to think that we are the supreme being, and blah, blah, blah.
Magical tree.
That's not what I'm saying.
100%.
I don't believe any of it because I have no reason to believe any of it. Until I'm given a reason to believe it, how can I?
Yeah.
It's really strange. It's really a strange,
and a lot of it's preventative.
Strange, duality going on here. I really want to fix things, but it just seems so impossible. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to override the censorship. This is wild.
It's disgusting.
But I don't,
That's why I'm beefing up on all that other stuff.
I don't understand, man.
We can't rely on.
I don't understand what's holding you back. You hate it. You see it. You hate it. Like if you're here, it's because something's resonating with you, or you're working, obviously. But the things are resonating with you because you're turning on.
Yep.
You could be doing anything else with your time, and you're sitting here watching me bash the Jays without telling me how crazy I am.
Yeah.
That should tell you something. You've been programmed left and right that you're not even allowed to talk about them. You're not even allowed to talk about them. We should just shut up and follow their rules, and when we do, and when we finally die, then we get the heaven. Yay. They get to live really good. I mean, it's crazy because if I was in that cult, right? If I was a J in that cult,
well, that's why we have to make.
It's not like I've seen anything that shows that I'm in danger. So when I'm watching my people slaughter another people, mostly women and children, because the men have all either been killed or arrested, I don't know how they sit there and they just, yep, I'm a proud J. Look at what we're doing. And that shows you everything you need to know. And I know people say, what about those that are protesting it? Yeah, well, they still think I'm a goyim. They still believe us to be goyim. And why, you know, why we're okay with that, it has so much to do with your church, you know, your religious bullshit. You don't understand where it comes from. You just believe it because your parents told you to believe it. Literally, there's not a Christian on here that'll be like, no, I looked into this or I did that and that's how I came to this conclusion. My favorite is when it's somebody that's like, dude, I used to be just like you. Well, if you were just like me, then you would have had to have a pretty incredible experience to make you override all of the fucking evidence that it's bullshit. I mean, 94, and that guy was, yep, and you, yeah. Look at this shit. Look at the desperation in the comments. It's always so crazy to me. Why not just tell me what I'm wrong about? Then I'll look really stupid. Just see it, guys. You know, there's not a thing that I talk about that isn't true.
Yep.
And it's crazy how, like, tell her she needs to watch Hollywoodism. That'll explain it all.
Yep.
What's up, Matt?
But being surrounded by water, that's...
Hollywoodism explains everything. Because it explains why you think the way you do. You think that you think the way you do because you believe that you've had all this evidence and there's a bunch of reason why you think the way you do. But you really don't know. And when asked, you know, again, like when you ask the born again or the person who used to be just like me, what changed? What happened? They go, oh man, there was so much, man. It was just so much. Okay, cool. Give me something. Oh man, I can't, you know, why are you so negative, dude? You're so negative. How am I negative? I want to know about your miracle. Yeah, but dude, I hear how you're asking. You're being a smart ass. Like they just find their way out.
That means there's activity.
And it's consistent, man. It's consistent. Everybody that claims they've seen miracles, not just a miracle, but miracles. when I ask them what it is, they like get offended. You would think if you witness the hand of God, like, you know, in my mind, a miracle is you're stuck on the train tracks. The train is coming right for you. There's nobody around to help you. You close your eyes, and suddenly the train's going by you because you're standing on the side of the road, of the train tracks. You're like, what the fuck? How did that happen? That's a miracle. That's the hand of God. That's things were going one way inevitably, and then the hand of God came down and changed it. God had his plan. He was like, I'm going to kill this person. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then for some reason, God changed its mind. That's what you believe.
Some bullshit.
So then when you ask people to elaborate on their miracles, there was this one doofus who used to be on my on my feeds all the time. His name was Robin Leach. Rob and Leach. It was Robin Leach. And he was supposed to be like, in the group, he was supposed to be the religious scholar. And I never did, you know, they would give the clues, like, in the group. Well, who the fuck's the group? Obviously, it's the trolls just before they got good at it. But he was saying that he experienced a miracle. And this is the guy that, you know, he was supposedly had read all, and I would be like, dude, so you've read all this stuff in the Bible, right? You have an understanding, and you're the one that supposedly read all these different theologies, and you come to the conclusion that Christianity is the right one. And go, yeah. Okay, so what was it that made you decide that Christianity was the right one?
Yeah, and up north you don't have.
And he'd pull that bullshit. Well, have you read this one? Have you read this other book or this other book? No. Well, the only way you could understand is if you read those books, because then that would make this more understandable. What the fuck are you talking about? That's some bullshit right there. But that's what you would always see. Like, that's what you would, you know, that's the kind of shit he would do. And when I asked him, you know, okay, so tell me about your miracle. He was like, oh, there were so many, dude. I've had so many I've experienced. And I was like, all right, just tell me fucking one. Why are you stalling? Because I know you're just trying to think of something. Again, you experience the hand of God. People aren't going to have to ask you about it. You're going to be telling everybody for the rest of your life. I was on a train tracks, and I was fucking standing there, and I was screaming, and then all of a sudden I closed my eyes, and I woke up, and I was on the side of the road, and the train was going by me, and I was, what the fuck? I didn't know what it was. My foot was stuck. And they're like, paper or plastic, sir? Oh yeah, sorry, paper. You know, you'd be telling everybody. So when I ask you what your miracle is, when you have to think about it, oh, I don't, with so many, I don't know.
No, nothing's the same.
You know, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
No.
So he says, you know,
a lot of that.
Okay, well, this one time, I was with this girl. I was living in her apartment with her, and I really wanted to leave. She was abusive. She was mean, and one day I decided to break up with her. And she just went crazy, and she started saying she was gonna kill herself and all this shit.
Somebody's TV show.
And you know, the sorry, I got distracted by what I was saying. You know, she went crazy. She's gonna kill herself. Blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, so what was the miracle? Well, I prayed for God to give me the strength to stay with her, so she didn't do it. And I was like, did you have a place to go? Well, no. And you were like in like northern Michigan where there's literally no one around you for miles, right? Yeah. I said, are you still with her? No. Did she kill herself? No, we broke up a few months later, and everything was okay. It was mutual.
Fully developed.
I said, so the miracle is that God gave you the strength to stay somewhere until you could make other arrangements. Like, how arrogant do you have to be to say something that stupid? He didn't like that very much. The hand of God is a hoax.
Exactly.
He only uses his feet to kick ass. To step on and crush.
Yep. Yep. So, and that, something happened and they reset the earth. So all those people were wiped out and all the technologies were wiped out.
They're in the catacombs that are all over the fucking world, filled with bones, millions and millions of people's worth of bones.
So that's his theory is that
it's not my theory.
Reset the stage. It's not working. They're getting too smart, or they're boring, whatever it is, and they just reset it.
My theory answers the questions. Everyone else's theories have these open-ended. Well, it's this, it's this, it's this. Okay, so for what? I don't know. But when you add that last element, that we're just a fucking reality TV show, because lots of people are cool with being like, we're in a simulation. We're in a simulation. Why do people they're always so cool with the simulation, but not a reality-based TV show? You want to believe that you're fake? I'm not fake. Are you fake?
He was looking up something, and he stumbled across the pneumatic tube system. And this was an intricate system of tubes that was
before the subways,
underground and everything, subways, that they would use to send messages to different people. Put the messages in the tubes, and it would.
No, it's how they delivered the mail throughout the city.
The mail through the city using the tubes,
and
they could also travel themselves through these pneumatic tubes. How the fuck could they do that? They didn't have cars.
They didn't have power tools.
There were no power tools. There wasn't electricity. But they had this pneumatic tube system. Right, exactly.
Well, they had electricity. I'm pretty sure electricity was a thing.
It's crazy, all the stuff that...
The more you look, the more questions you have.
The more he finds.
There's someone in the background talking to this lunatic. Can we see that delusional individual? Oh yeah, can I? Can I please? Can I give in to what you want? How stupid. Think about that. I'm deranged, I'm delusional, I'm whatever. Why don't you tell me how and why? Why don't you try to fix it? Because I tried, but you don't. That's what we're going to get. Clear the slate. So anything that you guys think I'm getting wrong, tell me what that is.
It's crazy.
Tell me what it is.
Like, how could this exist? We can't do this now. So how did they have that done? Like, insane. But we can have Ferraris.
There are pictures from before cameras are supposed to exist.
Yeah, he's found pictures before cameras were supposedly have been invented. Like, well, how were there pictures? The camera wasn't invented yet. Oh, it's crazy.
Why are all the pictures of cities from the earliest pictures show empty cities?
She's asking where you found this stuff at.
There's a great channel called My Lunch Break. Just go watch that one.
Say that again?
Just look up a guy called My Lunch Break. Start with episode 1 and have a good time.
Okay. There you go. My Lunch Break. He had me watch this.
She told me one day. She was like, "What's up, Beef?" She was like,
and it's fucking terrifying.
She was like, because she used to argue with me that I can't place all the blame on one group and blah blah blah. And then the other day she was like, I hate to admit it, but you were right.
Like all the other stuff is all the body. But
Hollywoodism is the movie. The main reason is because they made it. It's not an Alex Jones movie. They made it.
It has propaganda in it, because it is made by the group that runs the world. But it also
explains everything.
Everything.
And you have to watch it like slow.
They're in power, how they're in power, and you do have to. It's packed with information, so you do kind of have to take a break and just kind of process or rewind and watch that little bit again just so you catch what he's saying. But it's so much information, and it explains it all.
And why we believe in a two-party system.
Power, why they're in power.
They created that whole thing. They created our whole historical narrative.
Yeah, all of our history was created. It's fucking insane. It actually flat out admits that Hollywood runs the government.
And that the American dream is actually the J dream?
Yeah, the American dream is actually the Jewish dream. Oh my god, this shit is fucking insane.
And it's all them. You can't hide behind the conspiracy.
And it's not wasn't conspiracy theorists that made this.
It's a bragging movie.
It was made by that community in effort to kind of boast at what they were able to create.
It's funny that there's not like a mainstream Hollywood version of that, right? Why isn't there a movie about how Hollywood came into existence?
And afterwards was like, you're right, it answers all the fucking questions.
Hollywoodism first. Hollywoodism is like an hour and a half. No, that shit'll all come in with my lunch break. My lunch break has like 170 some videos or something.
My lunch break, he said, has like 170 some videos, and it explains all of that stuff, the tubes, all of it. He touches on all that. Exactly.
It just makes sense. That's the thing about it, is it all just makes sense. Whereas you're supposed to believe that like God came down and made Mary pregnant and blah 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 blah. But when you see this thing that's like, no, it's actually this. And the reason why you believe it is because of us.
I stopped believing in history when I was a little girl. And, so every time I get in history books.
How are submarines not real? Go watch parts 1 through 9. Tell you everything you need to know.
Why am I reading this and have to memorize it? It's not fucking true.
Winners write the history. We all know that. Don't you think it's weird?
Cynical, skeptical feeling about history, because I know
we all know that winners write the history. And yet we still believe it.
Now I'm sitting here in history class being told that no, he didn't discover America. He came here.
He followed a map.
He followed a map of people that had already been here. So why the fuck did you have me lie to me all these years?
But even worse is the Pilgrim story.
Discovered America.
The Pilgrim story is worse.
And just
that
it was just compounding.
They crashed at Plymouth Rock in November in Cape Cod.
I was Nick.
They crashed in Cape Cod after being at sea for 2 months. It was a 1 month journey, but they got lost. So they were at sea for 2 months. They crashed in Cape Cod in early November, like November 10th. But they didn't make their first expedition until December 20th or 21st.
And make us regurgitate it.
And then they somehow found a clear-cut area and were able to build, and the Indian was Quanto walking up the fucking road. And
goes back to that.
Like, what are we talking about? What the fuck are we talking about?
And then they put us in school.
This is crazy.
Reinforces that. Do not think for yourself. This is how you're supposed to think.
Let's see if I can find that thing on Rockefeller and education. Rockefeller education.
Well, it's heartbreaking. It's deception on a deep level that you feel. And that is something, that kind of betrayal.
The dark truth.
We're not taught how to.
The dark truth of the education system shaped by John D. Rockefeller. The American educational system, a cornerstone of societal development, has undergone numerous transformations over the years. One influential figure in shaping the landscape of education was John D. Rockefeller, a name often associated with wealth and industry prowess. However, as I delve into the annals of history, a disconcerting truth emerges, one that raises questions about the true motive behind Rockefeller's education endeavors. During the early 20th century, John D. Rockefeller, a titan of the American business world. So in the 1900s, we've already had things, the resets and shit. We're talking about something called Hollywoodism. The link will be in the description after the fact, or if you want to go watch it now, go look at a previous video. It's in every one of my previous videos' descriptions. Hollywoodism will explain it all to you.
Even so far as to trick yourself into seeing.
A titan of American business world, he sought to leave a lasting legacy. His philanthropic initiatives, particularly in education, led to the creation of the General Education Board (GEB) in 1902. On the surface, this seemed like a benevolent move. It led to the creation of the General Education Board in 1902. That's interesting. On the surface, this seemed like a benevolent move, with Rockefeller expressing a desire to improve the educational system and uplift society. However, a closer inspection reveals a more sinister side to his actions. Rockefeller's influence on education was not solely altruistic. The GEB played a pivotal role in imposing a standardized model of education across the nation. This standardization, while seemingly efficient, carried with it a hidden agenda to mold a workforce that would serve the interests of industrialists like Rockefeller himself. By imposing a uniform curriculum and promoting rote memorization, R-O-T-E, the GEB aimed to create a compliant and obedient citizenry, well suited for factory work. The emphasis on conformity stifled creativity and critical thinking, limiting the potential for independent thought and innovation. In addition to standardization, Rockefeller's influence extended to suppressing alternative educational models that posed a threat to the industrialist agenda. Independent and progressive educational methods that encouraged critical thinking and individualism were sidelined in favor of a system designed to produce obedient workers. To truly understand the dark motivations behind Rockefeller's educational initiatives, one must explore the broader content of his industrial empire. Rockefeller, the founder of Standard Oil, wielded immense power and wealth. His interest in education was not merely philanthropic, it was a strategic move to ensure the perpetuation of his influence and wealth. By shaping the educational system to serve the needs of the industry, Rockefeller aimed to create a workforce that would be docile and subservient to the economic machine. The ulterior motive was to maintain control over the labor force, ensuring that individuals remained cogs in the industrial wheel rather than empowered critical thinkers capable of challenging the status quo. Look at how I'm making all this up, right? While John D. Rockefeller's contributions to education may have had a lasting legacy, it is crucial to scrutinize the true motivations behind his actions. The standardized educational system he helped create, with its emphasis on conformity and suppression of alternative methods, raises questions about the genuine intent behind his philanthropy. I mean, this is just repeating itself over and over again. This isn't even what I wanted to find. Where's the goddamn quote? So here, let's see what Snopes has to say, right? Did John D. Rockefeller say, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers? No. His guy did. His education secretary. John D. Rockefeller, who founded the General Education Board, once said, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. Rating, unproven. That's what Snopes says. It's unproven. A quote attributed to John Rockefeller, patriarch of the Rockefeller political dynasty and former richest man on earth, is often used as an example of how the elites view the public education system as a way to create more workers in the furtherance of capitalism and the preservation of their status. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Right? Rockefeller donated millions of dollars to further public education in America and had strong views about how educational charities should function. He created his own charity, the General Education Board, in 1903. So Snopes is saying it's 1903 now. Thought it was 1902. The charity shut down operations in 1964. Of course it did. As described by the Rockefeller Center, The General Education Board was devoted to the cause of improving education throughout the United States. Its efforts included a number of key initiatives focusing on public education in the South and the improvement of medical education. The GEB was incorporated in 1903 to foster, quote, the promotion of education within the United States of America without distinction of race, sex, or creed. John D. Rockefeller Sr. made an initial commitment of $1 million to the organization, but his contributions quickly grew to $43 million by 1907. Do you understand how insane that is? $43 million in 1907. They don't even give you a this is that much money in today's money. $43 million in 1907 to the education system. For what? Because he gave a shit so much?
Stone beads, not glass beads.
The total of these donations marked at the time the largest gift of a philanthropic organization in the history of the United States. The GEB has faced persistent allegations that it unfairly pushed poor and minority students towards vocational schooling, limiting the upward mobility as described in a 1992 history of the organization. The GEB is known for its expenditures that rescued schools from desperate circumstances, yet the programs that they recommended time and time again advocated vocational offerings for students who could not attend college. Again, the problem is not with opening doors to poor children, as the philanthropists viewed their donations, but with closing the doors to any other area a student might choose to pursue. Kind of like the money isn't for them, it's for us not to have. It's the same perspective. Mind you, I'm reading Snopes, right?
Well, that ended up being turning into a because I didn't know.
It is with the belief that a student's lot was known and that the future lay. The GEB continued their influence beyond their first 20 years, but much of the foundation for vocational education for training in specific ends was laid within this very short period of time. Because that makes sense, right? It makes sense that 1907 would affect 1997, right? The alleged quote about wanting workers, not thinkers, broadly fits with that characterization of the GEB. There is, however, no evidence Rockefeller or anybody else associated with GEB said it. So maybe that guy wasn't associated with. See how they're wording it? The earliest reference to the quote, as far as Snopes can identify, stems from a 2006 documentary, One Nation Under Siege, whose experts included a wide variety of conspiracy theorists, including the now famous anti-vaccine activist Sherry Tenpenny, as described on the film's website. One Nation Under Siege presents disturbing facts never before disclosed to the majority of the sleeping American public. I mean, that's the thing about these kinds of movies. That's why they always resonate. Because we know they're true, and these movies don't do that thing that the official narrative does. The official narrative tells you, like, swallow it. Fucking swallow that shit. And you're like, and they're swallow that shit. If you don't swallow it, you're a bad person. Your parents are going to get fucked with. Your children are going to get fucked with. Swallow this fucking load. Whereas the conspiracy movies are always like, hey, did you know that? I know you know that there's this side of things, but did you know that there's actually other facts that go along with it? They left a bunch of shit out. And here's all the shit they left out. And here's the sources. And here's the, it's always like boom, 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 boom. Okay, so now what do you think?
Yes, I'm missing.
Through the research of over a dozen internationally distinguished authors, journalists, physicians, and ex-military, you will begin to understand the massive and ceaseless control projected onto an unsuspecting populace by a government that seems to have questionable motives and mendacious answers. I mean, what does that? How is that a negative thing to say? Right? How is that a negative thing to say? That's saying we need to hold our government accountable because they don't seem to be being held accountable. Why would that be a bad thing? One of the main experts in the documentary, JFK and UFO conspiracy theorist Jim Marrs, attributed the quote in question to Rockefeller. The quote also appears on the film's website. This isn't it, though. It's funny how they're like, this isn't the quote that I'm talking about. John D. Rockefeller, I think, boasts the beliefs of this ruling elite that wants to try to homogenize our education system, when he was quoted as saying, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. He already said, I think. So I think the education system is not only pushing people into a socialized version of government, which is good. We should have a socialized version of government, but also dumbing the individual down to the point where he'd be a good worker in the factory or he'll be a good worker in Silicon Valley. He may know a lot about computers, but he is not going to have a classic education that will allow him to take all of these facets of the culture and society and put them together and really form an intelligent opinion as to what's going on and what might be the best interest of the individual. Oh, here it is. Here it is. So they couldn't just let it go. I'm so glad they didn't. Snopes has not located any earlier formulation of this quote, but Marrs thinks Rockefeller said. The alleged statement does, however, sound like a poor paraphrase of statements made by a Rockefeller advisor, Frederick Taylor Gates. And he wasn't just a Rockefeller advisor. He was the head of the system. It's so funny that they're hoping you didn't read all the way down here. They could have easily started with this because this is clearly what it is. But again, this guy is just an advisor, huh? What? Gates was instrumental in the founding operation of the GEB and described its philosophy this way in his 1916 book, The Country School of Tomorrow. So this guy said, I think it was Rockefeller that said this. But we know that the guy that was instrumental in the founding and operation of the GEB wrote in a book.
Yeah.
See what I mean? Like, this is crazy. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. Which is really interesting how this is worded, right? Because it makes it sound like, what's the most important? The most important is the people who can write, who can create narratives. Yep. The poets. Can you believe the poets are number 3? Authors, editors, and poets. That should tell you why there's not a poet making music, why it's always rap or it's whatever. How come there's no poet? Because they know that it will, it's like Pied Piper shit. But look at how this is quoted, right? So, first and foremost, they don't want authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have ample supply. So the last ones mentioned are, we say the great artists, painters, and musicians, but then we go nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, and statesmen. Government, right? These people are less important than the poets and all that, according to this guy. Of whom we have an ample supply, he says. The task we set before ourselves is very simple as well as very beautiful, as a very beautiful one. To train these people as we find them to be perfectly ideal, to a perfectly ideal life, just where they are. So we will organize our children into a little community and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way. In the homes, in the shops, and on the farm. Jesus Christ. Can you listen to this real quick?
Yeah, maybe. maybe.
This is important. This is the guy that was in charge of the General Education Board.
Hold on one second. Guy just found something he wants me to hear. Hold on one second. I'll put you on speaker so you can hear it too. All right,
this is a guy, his name is Frederick Taylor Gates. He was one of Rockefeller's top advisors, and he was instrumental in the founding of the operation of the GEB, the General Education Board, and described its philosophy this way in his 1916 book, The Country School of Tomorrow. So this is when the Rockefellers took over the education system. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have to not raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have an ample supply. The task we set before ourselves is very simple as well as a very beautiful one. To train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life where they are. So we will organize our children into a little community and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way. In the homes, in the shops, and on the farm.
Oh my God.
That was the guy that was in charge of our education system. Speaking of which, I got a guy on here that just called me an LOOSER.
Exactly.
I'm a loser.
Exactly.
This is exactly what we're talking about. Stupid fucking people. This dude just called me a loser. You loser. You would think,
again,
like, the phone is telling you, hey, this isn't a word.
Hollywoodism, it explains.
But this exactly.
Came to this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Freaking disgusting.
Well, this is in line with the sentiment attributed to Rockefeller and was in line with his own views on education. It was authored by another individual. As such, there is no proof that Rockefeller ever used those words. So that's, again, this is what they're trying to say to you. It's not important what was said. It's important whether he said it or not. Oh, yeah, well, it was said, and it was actually a lot worse than you think it was. But Rockefeller didn't say it. No, his number one guy did.
Same thing. Nobody.
All evidence points to this quote being poorly paraphrased and misattributed. However, Snopes is unable to definitively identify the assertion that Rockefeller once said these words. As such, the claim remains unproven. That is fucking wild.
No, and the guilt is eating her alive.
That is just fucking wild. You've embarrassed yourself, brother. Can't be a troll and not know how to spell.
Yeah.
Oh, man, even the trolls are coming at you, dude. Nope. Rock Boy's in the building. Oh, yeah, you work for Jay-Z? Come on, now. All right, I'm done. I'm so sick. And it's just getting worse, and I feel like shit.
No, he doesn't.
And I hope you guys have a great day. And hope you go watch Hollywoodism. The link will be in the description. And most importantly, I hope all you pedophiles kill yourself.
And you don't think your daughter's not going to remember that and hold that shit